Well, that was a movie.
Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Sasquatch Sunset, the new film written and directed by David and Nathan Zellner, and starring Nathan Zellner, Jesse Eisenberg, Riley Coe, and Christoph Zajac-Denik as Sasquatches, Bigfoots, living in the woods. And there's not much more of a plot synopsis I can give you. That is the plot. And if you've seen the trailer, you know what kind of movie this is. It's a very indie vibe, very low budget feeling, very weird, quirky, very niche audience. They didn't trick themselves into thinking this was going to have a mass appeal. In fact, I couldn't go to my regular AMC to see this because it wasn't showing. I had to go to one a little bit farther away because obviously it's not going to get the widest of releases. It's more of the indie artsy crowd that is going to want to see this. So some theaters may not have it, but it's out there if you're interested. And it's funny, I have seen the trailer multiple times, but I forgot it was executively produced by Ari Aster, but it is. And about an hour into this movie, I went, I bet Ari Aster loves this movie. And then I was like, wait, doesn't he produce it? And yeah, so it's kind of reminiscent of something you would think he would like, or at least something you would think he would like after having seen Beau is Afraid. Because after seeing Beau is Afraid, my opinion of Ari Aster and what kind of movies he likes has dramatically changed. Not for the worse, just it's changed. And so I enjoyed it. It's hard for me to recommend it to a whole lot of people though, because I know a very specific audience is intended for this movie. So if that's the kind of movie you like, I think there's a good chance you'll enjoy it. But it's not going to be, there's no dialogue, first of all, because they're Sasquatches. They don't talk. They grunt to each other, reminiscent of the Star Wars Holiday Special, where you've got a bunch of Wookiees hanging out. It's kind of like that. And yeah, there's no dialogue in this movie except for in the music. There's one song with lyrics, I'm pretty sure. And other than that, there's no talking, a lot of grunting, a lot of wide shots with scenery that's cinematic, and then quickly a fart joke. And I will say, not all of the humor lands, but when it does, it's fantastic. It had amazing comedic timing, some of the best comedic timing I've seen in a long, long time. It made me bust out laughing multiple times. It really was hilarious until it wasn't. This movie, to me at least, shouldn't be labeled as an outright comedy, and I wonder if it even is on IMDb. On IMDb, it's listed as an action-adventure comedy, and I wouldn't call it that either. It's very much a drama. It is about a family surviving and just going through life together, and that's what this movie's about. There is some adventure to it. There's definitely a lot of comedy in it. I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of action in it, but I don't think any of those are the main focuses. I think what it did was create a documentary-like story about, like a nature documentary, about these obviously fictitious characters, these fictitious animals, if you will, and it definitely starts out really funny and is funny throughout at times, but I don't think being funny was the primary goal. I think there's a little bit of commentary in there, and there's also just a, at times, poignant story in there. It does its best to make you take the subject matter seriously by the end of the movie, despite it being so ridiculous. And it worked to me. I thought, I went in knowing it was going to be ridiculous, knowing it was going to be funny, and it wasn't by the end of it. There was a point in this movie, like 3/4 of the way through, where I just took a step back and was like, yeah, I'm taking them all seriously. They're serious characters, and sure, they're Sasquatches, but like, I feel their emotions, I feel their plight, I'm invested in them to an extent. And I will say the story isn't the strongest in the world. It's a little bit boring at times, it's a little bit slow. At first I was like, this should have been half an hour. Like a couple of, I don't know, SNL or Mad TV style sketches, and then we're done. It kind of, like, I was thinking of like the cavemen from Geico, where it's like, that was perfect to have them in commercials where they're in these like 30-second spots, but you don't want a sitcom. And I was like, this is too long for this joke. It's run its course. But then by the end of the movie, I was no longer thinking that. I no longer felt that way, and I was glad that was a feature, and I was glad where it ended up. So there is some of both. The pacing isn't perfect, and I don't know that it had to be a feature, but by the end of it, I wasn't mad that it was, and I enjoyed what I got. So a bit of a mixed bag. I wouldn't say it's like, oh, this was a classic or this was amazing either, but it's definitely the kind of movie that it's going to be stuck in my head for a while. And it was very interesting. It was very unique. And that's what I really do look for. As a film critic, I try to just be objective toward things and like, was it well made? Was it well acted, directed, all of that, yada, yada, yada. But if I'm being honest, the thing that stands out to me the most anymore is originality, because it's so hard to find original content, original films. And that's why, you know, when movies come out, last year was a great year for it actually. When unique movies come out, I fall in love with them. Something like Dream Scenario last year, or The Holdovers, or American Fiction, all of those last year were unique, and that's why they were some of my favorite films. Not to say they weren't good films, they were, and that helps them be, you know, the best movie of the year, to me at least. But when we're so inundated, and it's dying off, it is dying off, the superhero thing is dying off, but it's being replaced by a new thing. And it's very interesting because the type of movies that like people are saying are saving cinema or whatever, like the Top Gun 2s and the Dunes and Oppenheimer, aren't my thing, you know, and I'm actually already kind of sick of that genre of like the self-serious pretentiousness of it all. And this movie definitely took itself seriously enough to have a story that you could take seriously despite it being about Sasquatches, but it was ridiculous and it was unique and it was fun. And I'm probably, you know, pissing off people by saying that I don't find Oppenheimer and Dune unique and fun and interesting, but I didn't. And so it's like, even though I can say those are objectively good movies, it's in a different category because I was bored watching them. This movie, like I said, there was a lull in the middle, but the concept wasn't boring at all. And the execution, even though it faltered at times, was still very unique and very interesting as a whole. So yeah, I can't say that this is a fantastic movie or a flawless movie or gonna, you know, sweep the Oscars like Oppenheimer practically did, but it was unique. So if that's what you crave as a film goer, that's what you're gonna get. This isn't going to be taught. You're not gonna learn about this at film school. Maybe you will if you've got a cool teacher, but my point is, it's like, this isn't the kind of movie that people are gonna be studying for generations. But it was unique, and I appreciate that, because originality is not dead, even though it feels like it sometimes. So I can't say, wow, what a great movie, but I can say, wow, what an interesting movie, what a unique movie. And, you know, I'm so glad stuff like this gets made. It's really coming on as a thing more recently, where I think people really are sick of getting the same thing over and over and over and over again. So we're getting more of this indie stuff, this weird, quirky stuff. And sometimes you get movies that are just quirky for the sake of it, and that is frustrating in a whole different way. But this felt like a genuine passion project. The way that they approached everything, the way the humor was done, the fact that Jesse Eisenberg, of all people, would agree to be in a movie like this, where I didn't even know which one he was until the end credits rolled and they showed you his name next to a picture of which one it was. And I mean, each one looks different, but it's like they're all Sasquatches. None of them talk. It was kind of hard to follow who was who, but it's like, you throw that out the window and you just enjoy the story for what it is, and you let the characters just be characters. I was fascinated by that. I really did enjoy that, and they clearly did too. Like I said, it's a passion project, and you could feel that in this movie. So, I mean, as an overall rating, I would give it, I think, probably a 6.5 to a 7. I don't think it was perfect, it was flawed, but it was original and it was unique, and that is precious to me. I love that. So honestly, one of my favorite movies of the year, despite its flaws, despite its drawbacks, mainly because of the uniqueness of it, but also, like I said, the comedic timing of it was fantastic. Maybe I'll get into spoilers and talk about some of my favorite jokes for a little bit, but there isn't a whole lot to spoil. I would recommend it though. If you like weird, unique, quirky stuff, the ones that don't just feel gimmicky, that they're doing it because they actually want to make something different and weird, then check this out, because it is that. And I know probably if you're already into that genre, you're probably already on your way to seeing this movie. You probably already got a ticket. But yes, if you haven't heard about it, if you somehow missed it, it wasn't on your radar, go check it out if that's your thing. And if your thing is, you know, finely polished action pieces or whatever, you know, the big blockbuster stuff, then yeah, pass this, because it's not for you. It's for us weirdos that like the weird, quirky indie stuff. So yeah, that's my recommendation. I'm not going to tell you to watch it or not. It's up to you. If that's your thing, then do. But yeah, I'm going to get into spoilers just for a little bit, because there's some jokes I want to talk about. It shouldn't take too long, but if you don't want any of that talked about ahead of time, you want to go see it for yourself first, please do go watch it, come back, and we can talk about it then. But regardless, please remember to like, share. If you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye. So, with the spoilers, one of my favorite things, there was like a running gag with one of them, the older child, I think it was, wanting to count, but they don't have numbers yet, it seems like. So it's just a series of and he would always lose count, and he would lose count, I think, at 4 every time. But so like there was an ongoing joke with that, and my favorite one was like they're laying down to go to sleep for the night, and he's staring up at the vast starry sky, and he's trying to count the stars, and he's just like and that kind of comedic timing was throughout this movie. Like, you've got the father character when I think he's high on shrooms at this point. Maybe it's right before he is, maybe it's right after he is, I forget exactly. But he's sprinting across the screen from right to left, and he trips and falls. And the amount of time it just holds waiting for him to get back up and keep running was perfect. I love the comedic timing of that. Later, when they're digging the grave, they're throwing dirt back, and the youngest one is just standing there getting hit in the face by the dirt and just expressionless. And there's the comedic timing and the comedic styling and just the deadpan of it all was so beautiful. It really was one of the funniest movies when it landed that I've seen in a long time. Now, not all the humor landed. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't like fart humor, I don't like throw up humor. It has to be really clever in order to make me laugh, and the fart humor and the throw up humor did not make me laugh at all in this. So some of that didn't land for me. There was a couple other jokes I remember not landing either. And as the movie goes on, it tells less jokes, so it gets less funny as it goes for that reason too. And that's by design, but it is kind of a drawback. If you really are enjoying the humor, you want more of it, and then there becomes less of it as it goes. There's another situation where the mom is getting ready to give birth, and by the way, the baby prop was pretty bad. The budget did show in that regard. For the most part, the budget wasn't an issue, but the baby prop was not great. But she's getting ready to give birth, and instead of, like, you know, laying on her back and putting her legs up, she's like in this, like, on all fours, and the son gets behind her like a catcher, like, all right, I'm ready for it, shoot it back. And that bit got me. It really did. There was a lot of humor in this that I just did not see coming, and when you figured out what the punchline was, you're like, oh my god, really? That's what they went with? So yeah, I don't know. The humor was very original as well. I mean, as weird and quirky as the story was and how original all of that was, the humor itself was too. Quirky, weird, and original, and unique. And so I love that for it. Like I said, in the regular section of this review, this felt like a passion project. I think the smaller the budget, the smaller the project, the more unique and the more creative you can be, because you're just forced into weird situations where you have to make things work in unique ways. You have to be creative. You're forced to be creative because you can't just pay to get it done the first way you thought of. That's what I had to think. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments below, and of course, don't forget to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys.